Joining us right now on the Lewis Automotive Hotline is Bill King from Nashville Sports Radio, hosting Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 on WNSR. He is the king of college football talk. Bill, how you doing, man? 11 days until college football begins. The non-playing portion is almost complete.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I don't – aside from Iowa State, Kansas State, and I'll have them on, but I don't consider week 0 the start. Now, that's just me. But, yeah, looking forward to it, guys. Yes.
We were kicking around a little over the last weekend, John Gruden speaking to Georgia and telling Georgia that he wants to coach in the SEC. Jimbo Fisher is saying he wants to get back into coaching, too. He's got a spot on the ACC network. Who do you think actually takes a coaching job in college first between the two of them?
That's a tough one. Now, there's nothing going on at Tennessee as far as job security, but that's always been the rumor because he was a GA there. And he met his wife, who is a cheerleader there at Tennessee. There is a connection there. He grew up around Notre Dame initially because his dad was a coach there in South Bend. But anyway, that job's not available. That's always been the rumor. 2-3 coaching searches in a row in years prior. I'm not sure. First of all, we've got to figure out an opening, and then we got to figure out are they going to go after Gruden, and that's all very, very iffy. I think he's a pretty good coach, but I don't know if any of that would fit. And then with Jimbo, I think Jimbo, the way the Florida State thing ended, and he did win a national championship in 2013, but a lot of the knock now is what have you done without Jameis Winston? You left Florida State in a huge snit. He basically quit on the team last few months, it appeared like, quit recruiting as well, was in a fight with the fundraisers, left, took all that A&M money and crashed and burned. I don't know how attractive he is either. I don't think either's coaching in the SEC.
What about a quarterback named John Matur from Oklahoma? How serious is this? Is this something that it's just because we haven't started playing football yet? Why it's an issue? Does he get suspended? How do you see that unfolding there in Norman?
I didn't really dig into the story. Let me begin by saying we talked about it this morning, and I don't know how many people, including myself, talked about how we joke on Venmo. For example, I just sent my wife 2 days ago $100 for whatever. And in the explanation, I put unicorn COVID vaccine. All right? Just ha, 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 right? That's really funny. I had another buddy, a radiologist in Athens, Georgia, during the show, send a message and said, you know what? I send my wife OnlyFans subscription. And other items like that, just in a good, funny, just in a good, funny way. So I'm thinking, this kid's in 22 is a freshman, right? And he's saying gambling and then a game. I don't know if he's just having fun now. Literally seconds ago, and I just randomly ran into it. You guys can pull it up on Twitter. Matir says, I never gambled. We were just having fun with the explanation. I can promise you I've never gambled, etc. Now, again, does that make it the truth? I tend to think it's just him having fun, but I don't have any insight.
Hey, Bill, you want to send that password my way sometime? I'm joking about that. Here's the thing about what Matir is saying, and I appreciate the idea of joking sometimes on your Venmo transactions. And look,
right.
If they don't find a paper trail about this is different from using a gambling app. This is, I think, one person making a bet with another person. If there's no paper trail, if there's no actual receipt, if there's no proof of this, they can't prove anything. It's just the transaction occurred on November 20th, 2022, and it says it's for USC versus UCLA, and the day before, the Trojans beat the Bruins at the Rose Bowl. So
that's the last game of the regular season. Yeah.
That's just a bad thing to be joking about. I bet you there aren't going to be many Venmo jokes for athletes anymore about what they're spending their money on.
Well, and let's take this to the football field. This guy has been handed the keys to the franchise, meaning it is huge that he is what they hope he is on the field as a player to resuscitate, kickstart, and get Oklahoma playing closer to what we anticipate they should be historically. If this is true, and there is indeed repercussions, this is big trouble, domino effect wise, for Brent Venables. So you can take the extreme other way, which I just did. I'm not saying I believe it, but the domino effect, if this is true, could be devastating for that head coach.
Yeah, and I heard you this morning on your show on WNSR talking about how what you're feeling is a potential dangerous situation for Oklahoma football joining the SEC, kind of like Nebraska into the Big Ten a little bit, but maybe even a little bit worse from how you were describing it.
It's a theory that worries me. I'm not saying I've bought it yet or bought into it yet, but Nebraska historically had always been a superpower, from Bob Devaney all the way through Dr. Tom's retirement, which was 1997. And they gave it to Frank Solich. It was good a couple of years. Then one year, he only won 9 games. They fired him. They hired Bill Callahan, and that destroyed Nebraska. And that was about 20 years ago. They haven't been prominent in 20-plus years in football. They're geographically at a huge disadvantage recruiting. They don't go into Texas and get the best players, or California or New Jersey, like they used to be able to compete for. Oklahoma is way more updated as a superpower and a brand, right? Not even suggesting. But I know this, studying history. You can be a superpower and kind of be at a geographical disadvantage, and the further you get away from that branding and that winning, the harder it is to flip the switch. And Oklahoma's presented a whole lot of bad football the last few years by my standards for them. That worries me.
A lot of first-year quarterbacks getting the start this year in the SEC. I want to ask you about a couple of them, Bill. Ty Simpson, what are your expectations? Him first year, he's a fourth-year guy there. Is he going to be the starter there, and does he finish the season out there? What is kind of the expectations for Ty Simpson?
They have announced he's the starter. This happened last 12, 24 hours. He is a player from Jackson, Tennessee, about halfway between Nashville and Memphis. He comes from a coaching family. His dad's a coach at UT Martin, there in that same area. And so he grew up with it. He was a kid who was offered by Michigan and Harbaugh when he was something like 7th grade. He's been wired for this. Now, trying to be objective, when I've seen him get his opportunities, and frankly, he hadn't been given a lot of reps with Milroe and everybody else, he hadn't looked very good. That doesn't mean he's not going to come out here with Ryan Grubb as new coordinator. They really think their receiving room with Ryan Williams, who's the best receiver in the country, not named Jeremiah Smith, and some of the other additions, Isaiah Horton they got from Miami, and just Jeremy Bernard is another one that they got a year ago in a transfer situation. They think they're way better at receiver, more solid on the offensive line. I think this one has a chance to work. I have been a Ty Simpson skeptic, but we'll see what happens.
Hey, and then the other quarterback I wanted to ask you about was Jackson Dart, who is, he's kind of doing some things at the next level, might be the starter up there for the G-men, but Austin Simmons going in there in Ole Miss. Do you think he has a better year than Ty Simpson? Do you like Austin Simmons better?
Well, I think the last few years Lane Kiffin's offense has been more trustable, for sure. Now, they've got a lot of roster turnover, either side of the ball. Austin Simmons is a Florida kid who was committed to Florida many years ago, and I think he was 16. His senior year, I think remember the whole Ryan Williams at 17? We heard it 4,000 times last year. Austin Simmons signed, I believe, when he was 16. He was that young of a high school kid. And he also played baseball down there, some for them, as a pitcher, hurt his arm. But he looked good. In the one area, guys, we got to see him was the Georgia game. Dart got roughed up early. They put Austin Simmons in the game, and he drove them down there like he'd been the Ole Miss quarterback for 5 years. Now, I don't know if that means that's the way he's going to be every down, every series, but he looked very good there. He's a lefty. He's about 6'3", 220. He's athletic. He's accurate. Right now, I'm a believer.
What are your feelings on Gunnar Stockton at Georgia? I mean, he came in and I mean, I thought he looked pretty good in the SEC championship game. But what are you hearing about Stockton during Georgia camp? Because there's still some who think that Georgia's got the kind of roster to win a national title. And the last two that they won, Stetson Bennett. I mean, he was good. He was a good college quarterback, but not one of the greats. Where do you come in on Stockton?
I'm going to answer it, but let me give you just a little side note. About 2 weeks ago, we were talking, and sometimes we'll just pick a player, and we try and find a comp, meaning the comparison for everybody out there who doesn't understand that. And I said his game style is kind of like Diego Pavia, but he doesn't have any of those accomplishments. I'm not trying to say that's what I think he is or will be. But you know what his game is if he's right? If he is playing at his best, is we're going to go back early 2010s and Connor Shaw at South Carolina for Spurrier. Remember his game? He was just a winner. He didn't really have a skill set of a big live arm. He could run around. He was about 6 foot, 210, kind of an odd size, right? But they just moved the ball up and down the field with him. That's what his comp is. And I think he's a heavy competitor. Again, he's maybe 6'1.5", about 215 pounds. They feel like they're better. They had no receivers last year at Georgia compared to what they were used to. And this year they have Zachariah Branch transferred from Southern Cal. He's an immediate impact player. They got a 6'6" receiver transferred from A&M, and they also have a couple of other guys they like that they're bringing up. And they're pretty good at tight end. So I think the offense has a chance to be better than it was. I think the book's still out on Gunnar Stockton, but, guys, that's the comp for him if he's right.
I really do like that Branch kid that transferred from USC. All right, Bill. I was doing a little research, kind of looking at some of these teams. Any team that you see going 16-0 this year, is there somebody out there? If it's in Oregon, if it's in Illinois, even if it's Texas, do you see a team going undefeated this year? Or if you had to choose one, who would you choose that could go 16-0?
Well, let me take into account schedule and note that Notre Dame opens up at Miami and then back home to A&M. So that's not anything but very difficult. They get through those two games, which they're going to be favored. They are favored in. The rest of the schedule eases up some. They still have Southern Cal in some games, but they're going to be favored in every game. That's the most reasonable circumnavigation. I'm not saying that necessarily I'd vote them number one, but it looks like the pathway that's the most forgiving. But if you said, here's the ultimate question to me regarding your question, and that would be, Bill, if you had to bet it, would you bet simply some team's going to go 16-0 or none of them will? I'd pick none of them.
Okay.
I'd bet the none.
What about the, you were talking about quarterbacks and being winners. Will Howard, all he did at Kansas State was win. All he did was go to Ohio State and win. How is that quarterback situation looking at Ohio State?
It's going to be Julian Sagan. He is a second-year freshman out of California. He signed with Alabama guys and was there about a week, and Nick Saban announced his retirement. So he left. This is a little over a year ago. And immediately transferred to Ohio State. Sat behind, obviously, Will Howard, who came in. And right now he's the odds-on favorite. Now there's a kid named Keen Holtz who's competing with him, who apparently is doing a good job. But the first quarterback you're going to see at Ohio State coming up in that opener against Arch Manning is Julian Sagan.